while we still have time. This is the Light of Truth radio broadcast with Michael Boldea.
All right, welcome to the program, and thank you for joining us. This is the Light of Truth radio broadcast. I am Michael Boldea, your host, and as always, it is a pleasure to have you with us. Another week has come and gone. Another tragedy has befallen this nation. This time, it was a school shooting. Not the first time, likely not the last time, but every time something like this happens, every time something like this occurs, it makes you take a step back and just evaluate everything and how fragile and frail life is. I've got a daughter that goes to daycare. I've got a daughter that within a couple of years is going to be in the first grade. And the fact that there were so many warning signs about this disturbed, mentally ill young man, the fact that the FBI itself was contacted and informed that, hey, this kid is not playing with a full deck, all the lights are not on in the attic, use whatever cliche you want, but there was enough warning, there were enough signs, there were enough intonations regarding this young man's mental state to warrant, let's put it that way, a deeper look into him. Or at least, not give him a license to buy a weapon, not allow him to purchase weaponry, because it's coming out that weapons were legally purchased. So 17 dead. That's the toll so far. No rhyme or reason. He was expelled from this school as well as two others. There was no religious undertone at this juncture. But hey, the white supremacists have claimed him. So there's that. It's just saddened. I'm saddened. I was going to say disheartening, but that's not the word I'm looking for. I'm just exhausted and sad because we're seeing these things happening with greater and greater frequency. Not so much school shootings per se, but shootings in general. Go back through the news feed over the last 6 months and see how many shootings were reported on and see how many shootings occurred. It's troublesome because it's becoming a trend. And anybody who wants to throw their life away feels entitled to take a few more with them. And this particular young man got arrested, didn't even throw his life away, except he's going to spend it, the rest of his life in prison, if not the death penalty. But it causes you to appreciate every day. It causes you to appreciate every sunrise. It causes you to appreciate every sunset. It causes you to appreciate this life that we've been given, this gift of breath and of animation, of reason and thought, of movement and feeling and emotion, this humanity of ours that seems to be missing in so many individuals. It's scary. It's scary when people no longer retain humanity, especially at what? How old was he? What, early 20s at the most. I didn't look into it, but since he was a high school student, I'm guessing not even 20. To have the entirety of your humanity stripped from you by this age, to have your mind so darkened that you would walk into a school and start killing people. That is beyond tragic and disturbing. And no, there is nothing that any legislation could have done to prevent this, because everyone's coming out of the woodwork now, including a former President Barack Hussein Obama, insisting that Trump do something and do something about gun control. Never mind the fact that Obama had 8 years to try. But see, that's what happens. Weasels pile on. Look, the reality of it, no legislation could have prevented this or many other shootings. Because someone who is intent on either getting a gun or someone who is intent on taking a life will find a way to do it. Please understand. If they can't get a gun, they'll use a car. If they can't get a car, they'll use a knife. You'd be surprised. Innovative people can become when their minds are darkened by violence. Now, a little closer to home, and by closer to home I mean us Christian folk, it seems we're under assault again, and none other than Lucifer's handmaiden herself, Joy Behar, had some choice words for Christians and Christianity, because hey, we are still and at this point the only religion that you can mock and laugh at and ridicule and disdain in this country without any sort of after effects, without any sort of blowback, without any sort of reciprocity, because they know that we Christians are peaceable people. They know that we believers don't resort to violence and death. We don't resort to mayhem and decapitations. But that doesn't mean we can't speak up for ourselves. That doesn't mean we shouldn't let our voices be heard when our faith is mocked, especially by someone as vile as Joy Behar. So the story is this, and apparently there's enough people that feel the same way, wherein there's some blowback, there's some pushback, there's some criticism, if you will, of what the handmaiden of Lucifer said. ABC, which is the network that hosts Vile Joy's morning rant, her and Whoopi Goldberg and a handful of other intellectual juggernauts, the likes of which the world has not seen, equal in thought and understanding to the most illuminated minds the world has ever known, Plato. And if you don't know it, I jest. Seriously. If you have nothing better to do in your life than watch menopausal angry women say stupid things and cackle, then I feel sad for you. Anything is better. Go volunteer to clean up a mile of highway in the time that it would take you to watch this nonsense. It would be better for your soul. But I digress. So, back to Lucifer's handmaiden. ABC is facing mounting criticism after its panelists on The View mocked Vice President Mike Pence's Christian faith. And again, if he would have been a Muslim, chances are they would not have mocked. But see, the man's a Christian. And so they feel entitled and at liberty to mock Christian and the Christian faith. Detractors of the view, and I hate that word detractors. Look, reasonable people. Don't give me the detractors. Look, my feelings regarding Madam Behar and Madam Goldberg and the rest of the cackling shrews is evident. Let's say that my opinion is biased. But you don't have to be a detractor of the view to feel uncomfortable with where they took the conversation regarding the vice president's faith. Anyway, detractors of the view are focusing on the fact that ABC News, which claims to be an unbiased broadcast news operation, oversees such a nakedly partisan program with one token conservative. The women of the view, and I guess the article uses the word women loosely, took a shot at Pence's Christian faith on Tuesday, mocking the former governor of Indiana for talking to Jesus and even calling it a mental illness. So this is where I need to stop and reiterate what I've been telling you for the past year. These people despise you. People condescend to you every time they get a chance. These people think that your Christian faith is nothing more than a mental illness. And yet most Christians are quick to support them with their money, to buy the products that they shill for, to watch the nonsense that they spew. But make no mistake, this is what mainstream media and Hollywood thinks of you as a believer. They believe you're mentally ill. This is why they don't have a problem with calling for the silencing of believers. This is why they don't have a problem with calling for the silencing of those who would stand against such lunacy as transgender children. Because in their eyes and in their mind, you're mentally ill. Some that still have feeling feel sad for you. They pity you. Those that have long lost their humanity don't care whether you live or die. They prefer that you die because then they wouldn't have to contend with opposing views. So once again, I'm a-begging you. Stop financing these people's lifestyles. Stop giving the handmaid of Lucifer your hard-earned time and buying the products that advertise on their show. This is the only thing these people understand. Remember, there was once a comedian, in quotes, who held up the bloody severed head of the president in a photo shoot. And she thought nothing of it. All the criticism bounced off until she started losing gigs. Until she stopped earning the money. Until all her opportunities dried up. And then, of course, she started blaming everyone else, being remorseful, crying, weeping, saying she's broken and everything else. Shut off the money spigot. If every single person that calls themselves a Christian in this nation took offense to what this excuse for a woman said and made their voice heard, then she would likely be fired. Hit her where it hurts. Take away the money source. Otherwise, she will keep doing what she's always done, which is belittle and condescend to people of faith. So apparently in this panel of intellectual gargantuans, a woman by the name of Sunny Hostin said it's interesting that the former White House staffer Omarosa Manigault Newman recently said that Pence talks to Jesus and believes Jesus tells him things. Just look at how condescending just that entire phrase of it is. You know, some people are just naturally disgusting and repulsive. I know a handful of them. Not personally, but in all the world, there's a handful of people that are naturally repulsive. Lucifer's handmaid is one of them. Anywho, Sonny Hostin said it's interesting that former White House staffer Omarosa Newman recently said that Pence talks to Jesus and believes that Jesus tells him things. Hostin said she is a faithful Catholic, but doesn't want her vice president speaking in tongues. You're as faithful a Catholic as I am a Buddhist. Oh, again, people who believe they're entitled to their opinion, even though their opinion is lunacy on its face. You're not a faithful Catholic. But see, she needed to throw out that caveat to gird the narrative that though she is a faithful Catholic, she finds the vice president's actions very disturbing because he talks to Jesus. And Joy Behar, taking a break from serving Lucifer his grapes on a silver platter, said, "It's one thing to talk to Jesus. It's another thing when Jesus talks to you. That's called mental illness." And then she went back to serving Lucifer his grapes. So there you go. If you are an individual of faith, if you are a believer, if you speak to Jesus and believe that Jesus speaks back, and I believe Jesus speaks back, sometimes daily, then Joy the Shrew Behar considers you mentally ill. And yet, you have such luminary individuals as Pastor Lentz and Pastor Osteen kissing the cracked and corned feet of the shrew, going on their show, chit-chatting, as though they accept the notion of Christians, Christianity, and believers. This is what they think of you. You are mentally ill. They consider themselves superior to you. They do not believe in the notion of equal protection under the law. Because if you're mentally ill enough to speak to Jesus and have him speak back, then you don't deserve equal protection. You deserve for Joy the Shrew Behar to put you in a corner and mock at you and point her wrinkled finger at you and call you mentally ill. Honestly, why hasn't every single church member, every single Christian, every single believer gotten on the phone, called ABC and said, "Hey, we will no longer watch, we will no longer purchase, we will call your advertisers and complain until this sow of a woman is off the air"? Meek doesn't mean helpless. Meek. Now I'm getting a headache. I'm so frustrated that I'm getting a headache because I guarantee you somebody would have. Well, the meek shall inherit the earth. It doesn't mean the helpless. That's not what meek means. Do a little research before you start throwing out half phrases and half verses. It doesn't mean helpless. It doesn't mean inanimate. It doesn't mean paralyzed. Stand up for yourself already. Tell them they can't do this anymore. And if enough Christians did it, if enough Christians stood up for themselves, if enough Christians took 5 minutes out of their busy schedule listening to Joel Osteen and I don't know, whatever else popular music is nowadays, Harvest or Edenfield or whatever lunacy, the Naked Cowboy. If they took 5 minutes out of their schedule to stand up for themselves, stand up for their faith, to make their voice heard and say, hey, enough. You will not mock my relationship with Christ. You absolute excuse for a human being. You demon in human skin, you. ABC News paints itself as a fair news organization, but it's a long-time slogan. See the whole picture. Often doesn't apply to The View, according to many critics, I being one of them. It has become jarring how fixated the show is on politics and how slanted the table is. No kidding. Now, Joseph Wolfson, who is a Mediaite columnist, said that it's ABC News' prerogative if network executives decide that having 4 outspoken liberals and a single token conservative is profitable, but the decision does a great disservice by marginalizing the view of roughly half the country. But see, it's half the country that says nothing. It's half the country that sits there and allows itself to be tongue-whipped by Joy Behar. It's half the country that turns the other cheek when it's not supposed to. See, it's not in every situation that we're supposed to turn the other cheek. A little study of the word would help out. So let's stop with this passivity. Let's stop with this helplessness. Stand up and make your voice heard. Pick up your phone and call, write an email, do something to say, hey, you called me mentally ill by association. I assure you, true that I am not. Call ABC. Call every single sponsor that advertises on The View. Be as tireless in hounding them as the other side is in hounding the advertisers of conservative individuals. Let them get a taste of their own medicine, because eventually it will go from words to action. And this is the other thing that we have to understand. If we're silent in the face of their words, it will empower them to action. What else happened this week? What was it? Some white substance was sent to Donald Trump's son's office or apartment, and his wife was hospitalized. And this goes on both sides. This goes for both sides. Who's going to own it? All of these self-appointed and anointed prophets that keep calling the man Hitler. We had this conversation last week. It went from words to action. Because if in your deluded mind you believe that someone really is Hitler, then why wouldn't you do everything you can to throw a wrench in the works, to stop him? And if you can't get to him, get to someone he cares for. So come on, who's going to own it? All the Facebook prophets out there. Anyone? I'm waiting. None of them are going to own it. Every single one of them is walking back to things they said because they realized it just got real. Action. And you don't need a majority to take action. You need a handful of disturbed people. See, call Christians mentally ill long enough, and eventually 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 individuals will think, hey, I know where they gather on Sunday morning. Maybe I should go help out the world. And then you have church shootings. Church shootings! The one place that ought to be sacrosanct. Last week there was church stabbing. Some guy in a church home started stabbing at people. Certainly bombarded with the idea that believers are mentally ill, that we don't have the capacity to reason, that we are the enemies of progress and civilization. Then in their eyes you become less than human. See, that's the big push right now, to dehumanize Christians. And once you've dehumanized a segment of the population, once you've successfully talked a majority of people into believing that this segment is not human, then you get atrocity. Then you get Auschwitz. Then you get the extermination of millions of people. Because if they're not human, you're not going to feel so bad about it. They're mentally ill. Just putting them out of their misery, aren't we? No, they're just mentally ill. That's what Joy Behar said. In between serving Lucifer his grapes. Fox News' Todd Starnes slammed Behar in a scathing op-ed, good for him, saying it's understandable that a Christophobe, I like that word, like Behar be dumbfounded by such a concept. I'm actually going to look for this op-ed because we're going to get into it, and I have found it because I am resourceful. But let's go back to this. It has become jarring how fixated that show is on Christians and Christianity. Starnes added that if hearing the voice of God means that you are mentally insane, then he is crazy himself. Add me to the list. And I'm guessing you too. If ABC News wants to employ an anti-Christian bigot, that is their business, he wrote. Pence himself didn't appreciate the comments and slammed ABC News Wednesday on C-SPAN. To have ABC maintain a broadcast forum that compared Christianity to mental illness is just wrong, Pence said. It is simply wrong for ABC to have a television program that expresses that kind of religious intolerance. The only religion that the mainstream media is intolerant of is Christianity. Only religion that Hollywood is intolerant of is Christianity. They're trying to push the hijab as a fashion statement, all the while calling Christians mentally ill. Jeffrey McCall, a media analyst and DePauw University professor, told Fox News that it is concerning that The View falls under ABC's news division. It would seem the news division of a major broadcast network should not be programming content that is clearly partisan. Really? The show should be exported to the entertainment division, if only to maintain some journalistic integrity. For the news division, McCall said, journalistic integrity died. Its corpse is rotting. It has been for the last 8 years, when every journalist sold himself just so Obama could become president. Journalistic integrity. Come on. Really? Let's stop with these superfluous expressions of grandeur, shall we? There's no more journalistic integrity. When someone that bathes in milk and Cheerios calls himself a journalist and can get an interview with the former president of these United States, let's just say that journalism died a painful death. It's rotted. It stinks. Journalistic integrity. Come on. Ironically, The View has emerged as the most prominent broadcast of ABC News. Of course it has. Whose programming has otherwise been in steep decline, battling declining ratings and relevance. At the same time, ABC News' oversight of The View, which it took over in 2014, has been criticized for Keystone Cops management, according to one ABC insider, resulting in feuding between hosts, multiple firings, and behind-the-scenes turmoil. The only one I want to see fired is Joy Behar. I'm going to take a few days out of my busy schedule to write emails and make phone calls towards that end. And I'm encouraging you to do the same. It's okay, she's not going to starve. But at least she won't have a national platform to call me mentally ill, and to call you mentally ill, and to call every believer who believes that they hear the voice of God mentally ill. No. No mas, as they would say in California. No mas. The Media Research Center emailed supporters on Thursday morning with a message titled, "Don't let ABC get away with this. Amen." The email reiterates the offensive comments made by Behar and Hostin, the faithful Catholic, lest you forget. We need to stand up against these bullies and bigots and let them know that we will not stand for such disgraceful and prejudiced behavior. We need to, but will we? That is the question of the hour. We need to, but will we? Or are we just going to roll over again and go back to sleep? Oh, well, slip of the tongue. until words become actions. Until, well, if you're mentally ill, then you are unfit to raise your own children, are you not? If you're mentally ill, then you're unfit to train up your children in the way they must go. Are you not? If you're mentally ill, then the state can come in and remove your children because you pose a threat to them by attempting to teach them mental illness. Take it to its rightful conclusion and understand that this is bigger than just Joy Behar's big mouth. Take it to its rightful conclusion and understand that they're building a foundation upon which they will build the gallows from which they hope Christians will swing. You have no right to teach your children about Jesus. It's a mental illness. So we're going to do you a favor and take your kids away from you and place them with a lesbian couple. The MCR, or MRC, the Media Research Center, said that religious bigotry and hypocrisy cannot and will not be tolerated. But it is, and rewarded handsomely. I guarantee you the handmaid of Lucifer is making millions of dollars, spewing her nonsense, her and the other shrews. The man even posted the phone number to contact ABC News executives with complaints. Find the number, call. Take a minute and call ABC now and let them know that this anti-Christian bias is dangerous and deeply offensive. Meanwhile, the women of The View addressed the controversy on Thursday, and of course, Behar didn't exactly apologize. And this is their escape. This is their go-to, isn't it? It was a joke. You are too dense to understand a joke. I don't mean to offend people, but apparently I keep doing it, she said. It was a joke. O ye who feeds grapes to Lucifer, you know that it was not a joke. You spoke your heart, you shrew. You absolute vile excuse for a human being. You dung of an individual. You spoke what was in your heart. That was no joke. If Jesus speaks to you, you're mentally ill. And if you're mentally ill, then we can do a lot of stuff to you. If you're mentally ill, well, you have no recourse, do you? Because you're mentally ill. You don't know better. We know what's best for you. We know what's best for your children. Trust us. You're mentally ill. You don't know any better, but we'll help you along. ABC News, part of the reliably liberal Disney ABC television group, has been accused of veering left on a regular basis. ABC News reporter Brian Ross famously helped spur a 350-point drop in the Dow Jones Industrial Average in December after he reported incorrectly on live television that fired National Security Advisor Michael Flynn would testify that Trump had ordered him to make contact with Russians about foreign policy while Trump was still a candidate. Ross issued a correction and was then suspended for a month without pay. He was then demoted to an unclear role at ABC's beleaguered Lincoln Square Productions. In fact, Concha pointed out that ABC News embarrassed Behar by having her read Ross's report on the day of the error, which he said is proof the two should be mutually exclusive. A floor director literally walked it out to Behar, who read the lead verbatim. The story blew up before being clarified and eventually corrected. They had no intention or desire to correct it. It fit the narrative. Joy looked foolish and was forced to apologize the next day. Did she say it was a joke? Did she? Was it a joke, Joy? Was it? Other examples of ABC News' liberal bias include the fact that the network's chief, former Bill Clinton communication director George Stephanopoulos, did not disclose a substantial donation to the Clinton Foundation in 2015 and was forced to recuse himself from moderating presidential debates. You realize that these people thought they had it in the bag, man. These people thought lock, stock, and barrel, it's all ours. We get to determine the narrative. We get to tell people what to think. We get to define who's mentally ill. And no, it's not a man who thinks he's a woman and puts on a dress. No. It's people who have faith. They're the mentally ill ones. It's people who believe in Jesus and who believe that Jesus speaks to them. They're mentally ill. It's not someone who gives their child hormone replacement therapy at the age of 4 to turn the boy into a little girl because they said they felt like a girl once. No, silly goose. Those aren't the mentally ill ones. It's you Bible bangers. It's you who insist on morality and virtue and family and raising your children in the fear of the Lord. You're the mentally ill ones. It's not those who participate in gay pride parades and have intercourse in the open air with children watching. No. They're the peak of civility. It's you who go to church on Sunday morning and sing hymns and pray. You're mentally ill, and Joy Behar has no qualms about calling you such. So, I want to get into this rebuttal that was written to the handmaid of Satan's comment. And again, no, it was not a joke. This is what the woman believes. This is what all of these elitists believe. This is why they look down their noses on anyone of faith. Because they believe you're less than. They believe that you're mentally ill. Vice President Mike Pence delivered a jaw-dropping rebuke of ABC News after The View host Joy Behar compared Christianity to mental illness. And it repeats what Mike Pence said, and I think it's worth repeating here. To have ABC maintain a broadcast forum that compared Christianity to mental illness is just wrong, Pence said Wednesday on C-SPAN. It is simply wrong for ABC to have a television program that expresses that kind of religious intolerance. It's I don't want to get angrier than I already am. And I think that if my gut is right, Christians are just going to let this one go too. Just chew on this. It's one thing to talk to Jesus. It's another thing when Jesus talks to you. That's called mental illness, if I'm not correct, hearing voices, Behar declared. Pence said on C-SPAN that his faith is the most important thing in his life. And this woman compared that faith to mental illness. I'm going to keep hammering this home because apparently you're not indignant enough to do anything about it. She thinks you mentally ill because you believe in Jesus, because you have faith. Mentally ill. What happens to the mentally ill? They get institutionalized. That's right. My faith sustains me in all I do, Mike Pence said. The vice president said the View host insulted the vast majority of the American people who cherish faith. It demonstrates how out of touch some of the mainstream media are with the faith and values of the American people that you could have a major network like ABC permit forum for invective against religion like that. If hearing the voice of God means that a Christian is mentally insane, then add me to the list. Because just like Vice President Pence, I too have heard the voice of God. And I suspect many followers of Jesus have heard his voice, including Dr. Martin Luther King. And this is, I guess, the rebuttal to Joy Behar's invectives. Does Joy Behar believe that Dr. Martin Luther King was mentally insane too? Later on Tuesday's program, Behar backtracked slightly, but held firm to her belief that listening to Jesus is odd behavior. I think Mike Pence, say what you want about him and his religiosity, I don't think he's mentally ill. Even though he's saying he hears voices, I don't think he's that crazy, she said. So, again, to her, it's still crazy. It wasn't a joke, was it? It wasn't a joke. She still thinks it's crazy. She's just feeling a little bit of the heat. And this article by Todd Starnes ends with just the perfect pitch. It says this, but let's be honest. Had Joy Behar said about gay people what she said about Christians, she would have been fired on the spot and hauled out on the studio on live television. And that is the truth of it. Had Joy Behar said about gay people or homosexuals what she said about Christians, she would have been fired on the spot and hauled out of the studio on live television. That's the reality that we're living. A shrew of a woman can call Christians mentally ill on live television. And she got to come back to work and still call the vice president mentally ill. Just a little crazy. Since they're too busy replaying Hillsong for the 100th time. Or buying another Joyce Meyer book about how self-esteem is the way you win or some other nonsense. Stand up for yourself. Meek does not mean helpless. Meek does not mean weak. I heard this analogy, and it's beautiful. It's not so much an analogy as it is an explanation of the verse. It says, the meek shall inherit the earth. And when the word meek is used there, it's not so much that it's someone without strength or someone impotent, but someone who has the ability to do unspeakable violence, yet restrains themselves. That's the definition of meek there. It's not that you're impotent and helpless and weak. It's that you are strong and able. Choose to restrain. You choose to keep from doing violence. That's what meek means there. It doesn't mean you shouldn't speak up. It doesn't mean you shouldn't make your voice heard. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be outraged. It doesn't mean you shouldn't see how this can progress to something far worse for believers. Again, I actually think I'm going to write an article and post it on my blog. I haven't posted anything on my blog in 2 years. I'm going to post this tomorrow, or perhaps the day after. They're establishing the foundation that if you believe in Jesus, you're mentally ill. And if they can convince a majority that you are, in fact, mentally ill for believing in Jesus, then that gives them license to do whatever they want. That gives them license to come into your home, to take your children, to dictate to you what you can and cannot say, to look down on you, to discount everything coming out of your mouth, shrug it off, because you're mentally ill. Are you? There you go. Before we leave tonight, I would ask that you pray for Brother Douglas for complete healing and for energy for his wife. They've been in my prayers all this time. Please keep them in your prayers as well. Lord willing, we will be back next Thursday, live with another episode. Hopefully we'll have something new to talk about. Something not so dark and grim as mass shootings and the handmaid of Lucifer. Until then, may God bless you. May God keep you. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, Gino, the floor is yours.
Yep, I posted on my Facebook page the phone number for ABC Studios, and Mike is right on. We would be wrong in not speaking against this. And I did. Please call. We will get the number out to as many folks as we can. We need to raise our voices. We need to not be silent. The faith is under fire, and we should be contending for the faith. And so I'm going to try to, in the next few days, just keep promoting the number and the way to contact ABC headquarters in New York. Believe it or not, hard to believe, this show is considered a news program, which is an absolute joke. And, you know, the Bible's very clear. We are to stand for our faith. We are to stand for the Lord. We are to defend the family of God. And if we don't, who will? And so this is a very valuable program tonight. And I will also post the program on the Hand to Help Facebook page tomorrow on my Facebook. And we will try to really get the word out. And you know what? God can do a lot with those that speak and defend the honor of the gospel and the truth, and that defend the honor of our brethren under attack. Thankfully, Mike Pence came out and spoke about the situation, but we will get the info out for you to call and make a stand to defend what's right in front of the Lord. So God bless you all tonight. If you have a question, email lightoftruth@handofhelp.com. Also, please check out the website handofhelp.com for looking for any kind of materials, now is the time to get the word out. Now is the time to be strong, speak with our voice, to stand for truth. And that's why it's called Light of Truth. We want to defend the truth. And you know what? What would happen in the Muslim world if you came against Islam? Well, Christians, let's wake up. We've got the truth. We've got the true gospel, and we need to fight for it. God bless you all so much. Have a great night. Thank you for listening to today's broadcast, The Light of Truth with Michael Boldea. If you would like to order a copy of today's broadcast, please visit our website at handofhelp.com. If you have questions about our ministry, you can email us at handofhelpoffice@aol.com or simply call us at 920-206-9910. God bless you.